HTML5's new elements can better define the structure of our pages. A common page structure in today's HTML is a number of div tags with IDs that, reading the IDs, tell you a little bit about the structure, but the div tags themselves do not. So here we're seeing a div tag with an ID of wrapper, another div tag with an ID of navbar, and within that navbar div, an unordered list of links. We're seeing a home link and an about link. Now, looking at the IDs, I can tell that this must be the navigation on a web page. But if I were to take the IDs out of this code, we're going to see something that isn't very descriptive about the markup. The ID attributes describe the structure instead of the actual elements describing the structure. In HTML5, the specification provides for a more semantic look at the content that we're creating. So if we look at that same setup presented in HTML5, we can see that there's a header tag. Within that header tag, there's a nav tag, and that same unordered list within that nav tag. Here, I can tell very quickly that this must be at the top of the page or at the top of a section, and these links are the navigation on that page. This semantic markup makes it not only easy for people to read the code, but also for machines such as screen readers to be able to understand both the meaning and the context of the content that's being shown. To start an HTML page, we're going to begin using the new document type. The HTML5 document type is much simpler than the document type that we used for our traditional XHTML pages. As you can see, the XHTML document type is very verbose and contains a lot more information in it than the HTML5 document type above. Some of these semantic tags that exist in HTML5 are the header tag, which defines the header region of a page or section. Don't confuse the header element with headings such as H1 and H2. The header element could be the beginning of a page or a section or an article. This means that you could see multiple header elements within a page. The footer element is very much the same as the header element. It defines the footer region of a page or section. And again, you may not have a single footer on a page. There may be a footer for the page's content, but each section or article in that page could contain a footer as well. The nav element allows us to define navigation on a page. Anywhere you might see a sequence of links or want a screen reader to be able to take the user to when they are attempting to navigate page to page. The nav section might be located in the header, a footer, or elsewhere on the page. The point of the nav element is to define where the navigation exists. The section element defines a logical region on the page or a grouping of content. Think of the section element as a replacement for the verbose number of div tags that we use to wrap around content over and over again. The article element would define the actual piece of content. One section element may contain multiple article elements. So to differentiate between section elements and article elements, think of the section as a place or logical position on a page that you have content, but the article element wrapping around the physical content, whether it's a paragraph, a blog post, or simply a quote. The A-side element allows you to define a secondary or related content. It's commonly used with content such as quotes, charts, or maybe a map callout. Don't confuse the A-side element with the concept of sidebars. If you're going to have a sidebar on your web page, you're going to use the section element to define that sidebar, and that sidebar then may contain an article or other type of content within it. Let's take a look at how to build a web page with the HTML document type and the new semantic elements. Let's begin our new web page by adding the HTML5 document type. I'll also add some of the boilerplate code that we have on every HTML page, like the HTML tag, header, and body. There I have the HTML tag. I'll now add the head section and the body section. In the head section, I'll add the title, which shows at the top of the web browser. Now I'll start adding content in my body. I'm going to begin by adding a header element, which is one of the new HTML5 semantic tags. I'm going to give the header an ID of page header. In the header, we'll have the title that we want to show up on the page, as well as the navigation. For the title, I'm going to use an H1. The navigation is going to be surrounded by a nav element. In the nav element, I'm going to use an unordered list to list my navigation on the page. This is a common technique used because unordered lists are easy to style and it's easy to create a consistent looking navigation. Here I have my first navigational item. It's a list item, and in that list item is the word home surrounded by an A tag. To create the rest of my navigation, I'm going to copy and paste this list item a couple more times. I now have 3 navigational links in the header on my website. Another common technique is to have the same navigation in the footer of your website because this increases search engine optimization and is a little better user experience. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste the header and change it to a footer element. Now, I'll change the ID to say page footer and get rid of the H1 tag because I don't need to have a title in my footer. My footer is now complete. It contains the same navigation. For now, all of our elements are linking to the same location, but we have two different areas where we have navigation on our web page. I'll of course style the footer navigation different than the header navigation, but we now have a nicely structured web page. It needs some content though. For this example, we're simulating a blog website where we would have a number of posts. So for the content, where the posts would go, we'll use a section tag. I've added a section tag with an ID of posts. This is going to be the logical area where the posts will be displayed on the screen. Each post is going to be wrapped in an article tag, because the article tag actually contains the physical content, while the section tag just describes the logical area where content will go. As you'll see, this article, which is our post content, has a header, a paragraph tag where the content of the post would go, and a footer. You'll notice with the HTML5 specification, these semantic tags allow us to continue to describe even individual content like a post in the same way that a page would be described, with headers, footers, navigation, and any other features that we would want within this content. So we have some additional content within this post. I'm going to paste in a paragraph tag that contains some placeholder text. Let's add a couple more places to put some content on our page. I'm going to add one additional section element. With an ID of sidebar. This is going to be some navigation that we maybe have on the right side of the screen to allow our users to link to some archive posts. So within this section, I'll add another nav element and then another unordered list. To save some time, I'm going to copy and paste the nav element from above. I've added another nav element. Within this nav element, I'm going to add an h3 tag. And change the list items to be archived dates for posts. This would have a list of the different months that posts have shown up. For now, we'll just limit it to 3. Lastly, I might want some content to be called out within my post. I'm going to add an A side within the post. So I'm going back up to my post to add an A side. I see I also have an extra angle bracket in the paragraph tag below. I'll remove that and go back to my A side. This A side is just going to be a quote called out from our content. So I will use a paragraph tag. I'll use the quote character. And add the placeholder text for my quote. My content is now complete. Let's take a look at what this looks like in a web browser. I'll refresh my web browser and see my page content. Now, it doesn't look like much without styling, but we can see I have a title, some navigation. There's my post title, the content for my post, the archive sidebar, and the navigation. So finally, let's apply a style sheet that I already have prepared so that we can see the structure of this page a little bit more clearly. I'll go up to the head section and add the link to the CSS file here. I've now added a link to an external style sheet. I'll now go back to the web browser and see what my page looks like. Now that I've refreshed my page, you'll see there is now a style that has been applied. My navigation is horizontal. My footer navigation is horizontal across the bottom. Still not a lot of structure to my page yet, and we can use this as a starting point with our HTML5 and CSS3 websites.